All right. I have the first point. I mean, the first two. The first one is a read-only. Thanks, Kai, for looking into it. It's meant as a food for thought, and if anyone wants to discuss it async or in the next call, I'm open to that. Yeah. So
Before you move on, question, like, what do you think? How do you think we're doing? Without like calling us all out, like, how do you think we're doing?
No, I think we're doing very well. I think. I mean, I think we're doing very well given all of the constraints that we have, basically, right? So it's not like we have like a blank check to do everything, and we have all of the time in the world and all of the resources and everything, and so we don't have to worry about anything. We have to worry about a lot of things, and I think given that we have to worry about these things and we have these constraints, I think we're doing very well. Yeah, it's also difficult. I mean, if we, let's imagine that we like hit the reset button and all of the people that are now in code review just came in and together for the first time, and we could like start off with a blank slate and no legacy, no existing issues from customers and users. If we could do that, it would be different, but we have to live with what we have. So given all of that, I think we're doing very well. I mean, I'm really happy and proud about what the team is doing, and how especially how the team is behaving. I think more than that, because the behavior and the attitude are really important to make sure that everyone is aligned and knows what is most important. Yeah, and as I said in the first point, like if there's something specific, I'll be direct about it and call it out, as I have done in the past. Andre, do you want to voice your comment?
Yeah, a bit of a +1. What I like the most is like the pragmatical cohesion, and expanding on that is like, I don't think we're ideological and purely ideological. I think we actually get to the bottom of what can be done and for the sake of the user. And the one thing that I would like to highlight, and I've highlighted this on Slack once, is the respect between the multiple disciplines. I've seen Kai back up for you. I've seen you back up for Kai. I've seen Michelle back up for me. And I've seen all of that in all directions. And that, because for example, we have so much feature work that if Kai could not allow any technical debt to be done, and we have space for that, and vice versa. We could do 100% technical debt work on each milestone. And there's a mutual respect going there in both directions that speaks about the results that we're shipping. And even though we always get negative pushback, that's part of being in a lovable product category. But we've been dealing with this for a while, and Michelle said it best a couple of days ago. This is not our first rodeo. Like we've been through some things, and it's not that we're not listening. We know how to deal with that feedback and push for the sake of the users, always with them in mind. So, very positive note.
I'll just add a thanks to you and Michelle for dealing with the pushback. Much more challenging for me to deal with it than so I'm thankful to have both of you doing that.
Yeah, thanks.
All right. Yeah, on to my next point about ownership model. Yeah, it's a really long thing that I wrote there, but basically it's about having in the ownership of merge requests, feature and experience documented somewhere, because the way I see it, and I gave some examples there, is that there are so many groups that touch on merge requests, and I don't know, it seems to me that it's, if not the best example, one of the best examples in the product of stages overlapping. And we already talked about this. We suffer from the homepage syndrome, right? Where every department in the company wants one image in the carousel. And we suffer from that. Every group wants to harness the merge requests experience because that's where the whole team gets together, all of the developers, where we approve things, where it's the catalyst for many things. So I think we should try to document that somehow so that at least we can link to a place and say, hey, this is how we work and this is what we like, the kinds of changes that we gate and that we oversee. And these are the other kinds of changes that, although they're inside of merge requests, we're just here to support you and you can do whatever you want, more or less, you know. I don't know if my point came across. Let me know if this is too confusing.
I think I understand what you're saying because we just recently talked about this same thing. The page, so I think I understand what you're saying. However, that doesn't align with the page that you linked, if I'm understanding you correctly. The page that you linked is for like
Yes.
our satellite services that are super confusing, but we did talk about this before, wanting to define ownership. I linked to our backend key result here where I've assigned Carrie as kind of the DRI and the kind of outcome that I'm expecting to happen. For example, 2 issues came in yesterday that have been open for a little while, and I have to have a talk with the CI team just to understand who's working on this issue. Does it belong with you? Does it belong with us? And that's just kind of silly that we don't know our own ownership versus their ownership. And so collaboration is definitely welcome on that. I think it's a great place to start, to just kind of say, like, here's what code review is responsible for. Here's what we can help you with. Here's what we expect other groups to do. My example is with CI, but like you said, it's a lot of groups. It's a lot of groups. So definitely free to engage, but I don't have that anywhere. I don't know if we even have our ownership or what our expectations are defined anyway.
I feel like we should open an issue and start discussing that asynchronously because we're going to have to do some research where would be the right place. We do have domain experts on the code side that encourages reviews by domain experts every time you touch certain parts. I don't think that's being super respected. So we definitely need a stronger ownership message there. So I agree we should document that somewhere. But I don't know exactly where right now from the top of my head. I can open
my
the issue.
question is where we should document it, because I think to Pedro's point, this is more philosophical than tactically engineering, I think. Right, like one of the things that we've discussed is, like, how do we communicate to, I say, the entire right half, the ops side of the company, about the merge request page, because this is where they all integrate, and like, how do we make sure that we establish some kind of process so that, like, we're informed when we need to be and consulted when we need to be, or things happen when we don't need to know about them, without creating like roadblocks for these other groups. Like, you know, how do we make sure that the experience of the ones that, you know, Pedro added, like testing group wants to add code quality, you know, how do we be involved in that in an early enough place that, like, they don't start down that path and then we sort of roadblock it later, or it causes some other problem because we were 6 milestones into refactoring the way diffs work, and then we break their code quality 2 days before release. Those kinds of things, I think, are the things that we want to make sure that we do, but I don't know where direction pages don't feel like the right place to do that, and product doesn't have, I mean, product has some handbook pages, but I don't know if they speak to this. I guess we could always add some, but there is an engineering aspect. This is a very, like, cross-functional thing. So yeah, I mean, my question is sort of where would we do this in a way that it would be part of the flow that people think about or look at naturally?
Do 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 PMs or PDs or tech writers or anybody, if we maybe in the developer docs, for example, we have developer docs, a whole section on feature flags. Could we add a new merge request page there with process for working on this page, things we expect if you're on this page? Are the counterparts going to be checking that page? Your face says no. I think
I don't
that's
read dev docs, so I would say no. Probably not. But also, I mean, we have that same problem with like product doesn't read the engineering handbook either, and like it says things that are sometimes contrary to what the product handbook says when people do actually go and like read both of them, because they're all the handbooks are sort of done in isolation. The closest thing we have to like a shared page is the product development flow. But I don't know that this is the right place for that either. But yeah, I can talk to Farnoosh about it too and see if she's got some thoughts, because there's a little bit of product opsness to it.
Now that you mentioned that, Kai, we have the two phases approach of product development, the discovery and the build. If we contribute with an addition to that first step, oh, should I wait? We could add a section to, if you're starting to do the solution validation or scoping out a solution or problem on the first phase, make sure you get in touch with the owner of the area you're working on if it's not your own. And then we could create an index page for the owners of those areas. So kind of like hijack the product development workflow to point to where we document this, wherever it is.
That's the first
sense?
thing I thought of too when he said that. I agree.
Sounds like we have something to start off with.
Can you, sorry, Andre, can you write that in the agenda, because I lost your comment in the way. I didn't really understand what you were suggesting.
So product development workflow. So we have two phases, right? You know what? We do have two phases.
The two tracks, yeah.
What do you call it? The first one, validation?
Validation, and then build, I think, is the second one. Yeah, while Andre writes this, so one thing I wanted to share is that I scheduled some one-on-ones with product managers and product designers of CI release testing and secure, to just know a little bit what they're thinking about and kind of do a guerrilla research with them to understand how they go about like adding things to the merge request experience and other places where there's overlap. How do they are aware of things that other groups are doing that might affect them or that they might affect. And I just want to, take the temperature of this issue to really understand what could be a good thing to do here in terms of having a process, because one thing is communicating and having it beautifully written in the handbook that, hey, code review owns this and other groups do that. But if there's not a process of continuous involvement that fosters collaboration in a good way, I mean, it's I don't know if it's going to work, because it hasn't. I don't think it has in the meantime. And yeah, I had a question about what we had discussed recently when we made the splits of source code and code review. The approval rules feature was in this limbo, and we thought a good way to describe the relationship that different groups have with approval rules is that source code is the primary owner, and it owns the structure and how the approval rules are built, more or less like an API. And then the other groups consume that API and transform it into ways that it's helpful for their needs. Did we end up documenting that somewhere?
It's also a no.
Kai's face is a no, or I don't know.
Didn't we have a page, I thought, where we did some of the split, or did we just have the issue in the Word doc where we split stuff? I don't think we documented like that specific, like sort of anecdotal way of explaining it to people, but we did like maybe that's the piece we didn't document, was like that way we've described it.
Yeah, I mean, the way we describe it and using that metaphor, I don't care what metaphor we use, but I was just wondering if we had documented somewhere which could serve as an example of something that we can also do for merge requests. But yeah.
We do have the page where we list the categories or features of source code management. And in there, you have approval rules for code review, but not in the way of like clarifying the gray area. That's what I think it's missing. Like explicit clarification of that gray area.
Okay. In case there are no other comments, I think, yeah, amazing comments so far. I'll create an issue to discuss this a little bit more and to give some time for people to digest this, and also to as a place for us to gather feedback that we get from other sources. Like Kai was suggesting, reaching out to Farnoosh to see what she thinks and what we can start doing. So getting that in an issue might be a good place. Yeah, I can do that. I don't know if I'll do that today. If someone wants to do that today, feel free. If not, I'll try to do that tomorrow.
Okay, I'm gonna move on to the shared OKRs. Take a look at this issue if you have not already taken a look at this issue, but should we start discussing these async or have a sync call, or what do y'all want to do? Also, what are your thoughts on this issue if you have read it?
No thoughts?
I wasn't sorry, Andrea, sorry, you're gonna say. Just no thoughts.
Just saying no thoughts, but it sounds great to have a more cohesive key result planning. So looking forward to it.
Yeah, I was gonna say that I'm only aware of okay, yeah, never mind. Yeah. Okay, I'm not aware of what this is. Yeah.
Kai, have you taken a look at this?
Yeah, I have looked at it. I don't quite understand it because it seems like they're still like giving us themes that we need to hit, which is like the same thing that happens normally, is they sort of just get passed down from the themes anyway. So there's an AMA today and an AMA tomorrow. I will try and get to one of them just to sort of see what they're thinking about this process. Alternatively, I will just go open an issue in the create stage project for us to discuss this. I don't want to do it in this massive issue. I think that would be sort
That's
of a
what I
waste,
was
so I'll
gonna
just go open an issue.
Okay, are you gonna do it?
Yeah, I can do it.
Yeah, and for your point, I think we're still going to have the ones that come from top down, but this allows us to have on top of those, or sorry, on the side of those, have our own synchronized key results across the quad planning teams. So it'll be a mix. Right now, it's both basically not connected. We have ours, you have yours, UX have theirs. So I feel like this would at least have some key results in the end that is synchronized. That's what I read.
But my impression was it was to replace the top downness.
Okay.
So like those will go away.
Okay.
Okay, so we would only have, sorry about that. We'd only have the key results that we decide are the key results for our group, and those are the only ones that we would work on. No departments and no division key results.
I think that's the intent, yes, is that we decide as a group because, and this stems from product product doesn't really like the OKR process, and I think I've probably said this to all of you, because product does not set them at the same level as everyone else. So like engineering, you guys go all the way down to, you people, all of you go all the way down to like groups. So like front end has OKRs and back end has OKRs. But like I, as an individual product manager, do not have OKRs, and we don't set OKRs for the group. And so what inevitably happens is like, and then UX does the same thing. They come sort of further down the train sometimes. And then you throw in staff engineers in there, and like all of these OKRs get set, and product is like, wait a minute, there's this like whole long list on the product page that says where the DRIs for like what gets prioritized. And then everyone just used the OKR process to skirt that and basically say, well, I created an OKR, therefore like it has to be prioritized because like it's an OKR and we committed to do things as part of the OKR process. So product has been vocal about how like this process doesn't make sense. And so the idea is that I think if we come back and like do it as a group, and we all say, these are the things that as a group we want to work on and have our key results, then like those are things that product can plan for and understand and like has an impact to influence, versus right now we are sort of just like informed about everyone else's OKRs and then expected to like accommodate them in the grand scheme of everything going on. So that is where this comes from. I don't know how it's going to play like going up the chain all the way back up to like Sid. I think Sid has his theme set, and so that's why we have themes sort of loosely defined. And so I think that's the intent, is that we fill in the bottom and then it works sort of back up to like directors and engineering VPs and product VPs. But I don't know. That piece of it is still unclear to me.
Thanks for that insight. Yeah, definitely agree. It must be improved.
Okay, cool. Let's talk about it in an issue. And Pedro, you're next.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't want to hijack the meeting with many points, but I'm really happy to see contributions like Phil's to address pain points that everyone is feeling today, and just being proactive in like, this is something that we know is a problem. We have confidence on the problem and we have a certain confidence on the solution. So why don't we go ahead and just do this or fix that? And I'd like to see that more, basically, because I think, so first of all, I mean, everyone is a UX designer and everyone affects the UX. I'm a deep believer of that, especially the last people who affect the user experience are the ones that write the code and ship the code. So engineers have a deep effect on what the experience will be. And second of all, I think this can help boost the morale of the team and bring more ownership to people. And maybe for Phil and others who have been here for a long time, bring back that sense of, hey, like everyone can contribute and everyone can contribute more or less what they want. So how can we incentivize that more, bearing in mind that we have priorities and we have scheduled issues? But even with all of that, yeah, I mean, I just miss people experimenting and pushing out some things. Although sometimes some experiments should have some consultation. Sometimes I see people pushing out some ideas that were like, oh, wait, we're not ready for this, or maybe this is not, like, we're not sure about the problem. But I feel like when there's a good overlap of problem confidence and solution confidence, this is something that we can do today. Does that make sense, what I said?
It does to me. I +1 everything you just said. And there is that risk of us getting ahead of ourselves, but having a merge request to play around with, it's always better. Even if we discard it, we will learn something from it. And from the recent lessons of Phil's work is that they all end up being in the product. So because we're the ones working with these on a daily basis. So we kind of have a first-hand knowledge on how these features feel. So it's important for us to keep vocal on proposals.
Yeah. So how do you? Yeah, Kai. Sorry, were you going to say something, Kai?
No.
Okay. Okay. No, I saw you were muted. That's okay. No, Andre, yeah, my ask here is how can we incentivize that more so that people feel comfortable doing it? Because I think, I mean, we have Tomas on the call, we have Thomas, so two Thomases. I think you two and the rest of the engineering folks have a lot of UX sensitivity and know like what works and what doesn't work, especially because we use what we built. So let's harness that and let's empower people to make those decisions, because I don't want UX to be a bottleneck. I don't want our roadmap, and at least that's how I see it. Kai, feel free to disagree, but I don't want our roadmap to be discouraging of people pushing out some things that they think are a good overlap of what I said, like a validated problem, and maybe this could be a validated solution. So how can we incentivize that more?
I think it's just shipping them, and taking them and participating in them and engaging with them. There is one important aspect to highlight here, though, is that Phil does all this, but this doesn't come at a cost of deliverables. So it's making sure that we have well-planned, from my part, is making sure that we have well-planned milestones that don't end up with unexpected complexity, that's still unexpected time from engineers, so that they have time to think and explore and play around with these things. So yeah, for my part is engaging with these proposals and making them go forward, supporting them as a team. That's one of them. But anybody, any other thoughts?
I agree with Andre there. It's very important to me that the weight budgets that I give Kai are not 100% of an engineer's time, especially because sometimes reviews or people who have just recently become maintainers, those take a long time. So it's really important that there is space for people to play around. And historically, it's really like the performance issues that we get or the infrastructure issues that we get that totally spin out of hand. And that's where you'll see an engineer maybe reach out to Kai and say, can we schedule this issue that I would like to play around with? And then of course, we're always like, no, we can't schedule it. We have other stuff that's important. We have not you, Kai, I'm just saying like, we have a lot of stuff. So it's just important for like the release that we are working on to be so well defined that there is time for thought. Okay, we're at time.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks for your thoughts. See you next
Bye.
time.
Thank you. Bye.